Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Todd Bookspan, founder of Win by Noon. On behalf of Dave Savage and the rest of the mortgage coach community, welcome to our Tuesday interview. As you know, Dave has been doing this for like a decade now, where actually more than a decade. So he gets a great people or persons on here every Tuesday to really kind of help bring something new to our community. And I am super excited because not only do I have one guest, I've got two of my dearest friends, people who have inspired me, coached me, made me a better mortgage leader, as well as a better human being. So my two brothers from Building Champions, Michael Regan and Greg Harkavy, welcome guys.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you, Todd.
Good to see you. So you guys are up at Sun River and up in Oregon, getting ready to do a retreat. Is that what's going on?
Yep, it's our first all-company summit in 2 years. So it's weird for a company that has been gathering together 3 or 4 times a year.
Oh yeah, I missed those.
Yeah. So lots of amazing memories here from just team stuff and doing the experience here 10 years in a row. And yeah, lots of nostalgia, but it's great just to be in person. We were just talking, it's like, we can be close to each other. We're safe. So it's kind of nice.
You know, it's such a different world now. So, all right, real quick before we get started, I got just a couple of announcements that I want to make sure that we hit. As you guys know, we started selling passes for the Modern Mortgage Summit just a couple of weeks ago, maybe about 10 days ago. And so if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, we're 3.5 weeks from game day. We've got lots of corporate sponsors. We sold over 5,000 tickets so far, maybe even 6. And so if you're a corporate leader or a branch leader, let us know. We'd be happy to put together a package for you. But just go to modernmortgagesummit.com. You can buy a 30-day or a 365-day pass. And then I'm also, at all of your requests, hosting a webinar tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific. I'll throw the Zoom link in here. It's going to be for how to use HomeBot to create client engagement. So it's not a sales pitch. It's really just going to be me walking you through how I believe, whether you're a loan officer or a real estate agent, how you can better use that tool to create client engagement. So jump on, would love to see you there. So I'm just super excited. So anytime I get to spend time with Michael and Greg, I come away as a better person than when I started it. I don't know if that sounds too weird or not. Does that sound weird, guys?
That doesn't sound weird to me.
Sounds like you're always learning and growing regardless of who you're with.
So. Well, and I think that's what it's all about. And so, you know, when I had the opportunity to lead this call and I really heard that these two guys would not only be together, I really thought, Michael and I over the past, I think it's been 4 or 5 months, maybe, whatever, ever since Clubhouse has come out, we've gotten on at least once a month and some months, 3 or 4 times and done a Clubhouse call together. And so we're always looking to see how we can add value, and to have Greg here as well is awesome. Do you guys mind just giving a little background on yourselves and sort of Building Champions and sort of who you coach and how that kind of, why that matters to everyone who's watching?
All right, I'll start. So 13 years in the mortgage industry. So I got into the business in 1990. I was going to be an attorney, and I'm like, that mortgage industry looks really interesting. So straight out of college, I was studying guidelines, like on my college graduation trip, started straight into the business. And I gave it like the treatment of an MBA. I'm like, I'm going to give it 2 years of everything I've got, make no judgments, but I'll work hard and see how I like it. First year in the business, fell in love. It was the most challenging thing I'd ever come across. College was easy. Kind of life was easy. I'm like, oh, this is a business that's got a lot of challenge and nuance. I like it. So 13 years in the business, wound up being the top producer in the company. It was a small company that I worked for. It was a branch manager, helped start up a company, and just learned a lot, both on the front and the back of house stuff. So that transitioned into becoming a coach. Those of you know Building Champions story. My brother's the founder of the company. He and I had been in business together pretty much all of our adult lives. He became my coach while I was in the mortgage business. Took all the principles of Building Champions, applied it to my life and my business. I'm like, this works. I think I want to actually help other people do this. So I became a coach just about 20 years ago, and have been in that seat and have never left the mortgage space. I coach top originators to CEOs in the mortgage industry. And I like to keep it that way. I want to coach people in different levels of the business, and that's never changed. So knowing what it's like to be an originator, branch manager, area, regional, or if you're in the C-suite. And I just find all parts of the business fascinating. So I'm still a student of the business 30 some odd years later. Yeah, crazy. It's more than that. I don't even want to admit it. It's like, it's 33 years that I've been attached to this business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know Michael's story. So, lay it on us, Michael.
Yeah, it's a story that parallels yours in some ways, but also parallels Greg's in some ways. And I think that when I look back at how I joined this industry back in the early 2000s, I really, interestingly, approached it as a 5-year vision at that time, largely influenced by coaching. I saw this through the lens of, hey, if I can pour myself into this career for 5 years, I think it leads to other things in the real estate world that I can learn from this and build on. What I found along the way, similar to what you said, was a real like, wait, I'm not looking to get out of this in 5 years. I want to go deeper into this. And I think what flipped the script for me was somewhere around 2010 and 11. I started feeling this real passion for coaching others within my sphere of influence, and found a lot of joy and satisfaction from that. That wasn't coming from my paycheck. It was coming from the interaction I was having with those at that time referral partners, business partners, and at some point they were bold enough to tell me, you love coaching more than you love grabbing 1003s, right? I mean, let's be honest about this. And what I found was an opportunity with Building Champions to move from being a client, which I had been from the mid 2000s, thanks to your introduction, Todd. It was you and I going to a sales mastery event early in my career that awakened me to a whole world of people who were really trying to not only be better as individuals, but interact with other people and create a better environment in this industry. So I already had that, and now had an opportunity in that 2010 2011 period to have my team kind of push me out of my comfort zone and say, you need to go do this. You need to go do this all the time, not just as part of our business plan, but this is really where you need to go. And maybe to Greg's comment, it's given me access to way more diversity in this industry than I ever would have had leading a team or leading a branch. I loved doing that, but it limited my access to the industry as a whole. Now I get to meet with some of the industry's greatest producers, greatest managers, and greatest leaders. And I'm having more fun in mortgage lending today than I've ever had. So to me, this was my chance to go deeper into the industry, not to move away. And I'm really quick to point that out, because I'd love to originate if it allowed me the access. It just didn't give me the access I have now to help more people. So I'm in love with what I do and who I get to do it with.
Awesome. I love it. And I just wanted everyone to understand that you guys are mortgage people at heart who happen to now sit in the coach's chair. And, I had great fortune. Michael didn't mention, which was very nice, that we actually shared a common wall. His team was next to my team back in the crazy days, right when he got in the business. And, I was blessed not just to be a coaching client of Building Champions for 15 years, but also to be coached by Greg and then to be actually in the coach's chair alongside of them for a few years. So most people know that I'm just a big fan and part of the family, and have FOMO knowing that they're up there in Sun River. And so grateful that you guys took the time to be here, from your makeshift cabin.
Be honest, you don't have FOMO. What you have is you've got 106 degrees, and I woke up today and it was 40.
Well, thanks for rubbing that part in too, but you guys are my family. And so I appreciate that. I just want everyone else to kind of understand, what your backgrounds were. So kind of as we talk about, I always kind of look at it like views from the coach's chair, right? We kind of titled this Top Ideas to Create Business in a Shifting Market. And I feel like, although loan officers are still doing a lot of loans, everyone that I've been talking to has been finally saying, yeah, it slowed down a little bit. Oh yeah, that house has been on the market for 2 weeks now. Like a realtor told me that the other day. It's been 2 weeks. Like that's like a tragedy now. And I'm like, okay, well, that's just sort of what used to be normal. But and so, my thought is really just kind of having you guys sort of talk about what are you seeing and what advice are you giving to your clients, based on what they're telling you, and how we can kind of encourage this group to take advantage of what's going on now, embrace it in order to really flow in a positive direction between now and the end of the year.
I'm curious, Todd, and I'm not avoiding your question, but you've been running that whole TCA a day challenge with Dave. I'd like to know, what impact has that had on the audience? Because I don't have the same interaction that you have with the group that's probably watching or listening today. How did that help boost the level of productivity and focus toward the results that they were aiming for? And what have you seen from the TCA a day?
The TCA Day Challenge, it's still going on, number one. And in fact, at 11 o'clock Pacific, I'll be leading the coaching call today. We should have four-ish, maybe, again, not all of them are always dialed in like they should be and show up in there. But it was, the numbers were pretty staggering. Last month, we had Jeremy Forcier leading some calls, and he was really able to, he's a numbers guy. And so he had his team who participated. And there was just a few numbers that really stuck out to me. The gentleman on his team, Pete Torres, who was successful and did 31 TCAs over the first month that they were doing that, because he ran a competition within his branch. He closed 142 or put 142% more loans into process. But what was really most impressive about it was that his price exceptions were way down. It was I think the percentage was like 27 basis points. It was like, over 40% down. And so that just, to me, says less stress, right? More loans with less stress. I mean, like, who's going to complain about that? Because when they were forced to do the TCA for clients, then, by not just throwing out a number and then having the client say, oh, I can get this over here, they're giving them the lower cost rate that's higher, and they're giving them that low rate that they're seeing online with the cost that's associated with it. And it just takes that whole stress out of that process. And the big push now has been going from the one-to-one. So trying to figure out who to proactively send one to. So, this guy, Pete in particular, he said, hey, I have to start off with my clients who are in process, my clients who are applying for loans, my clients who are pre-approved for loans, to saying, okay, who else out there can I do this for? Can I send it to a real estate agent? Can I send it to a client who closed before, who's not expecting it, that maybe I could potentially refinance? And it really just paid off in spades for him and the rest of the group. He had another 9 people. He had 22 start. Of the 22, 10 were fully all in. And their average was up. I guess the 142% increase was for that whole group. So the people who actually did it, the folks who didn't quote win still did 24 or 25. It was a magic number. No one did 23. No one did 26. The other group all did 24 or 25, and their numbers were up, their conversion rates were up, and their price exceptions were down. And it's just one of those things where now we're seeing loan officers doing the CMA a day challenge with their real estate agents and really pushing them to be proactive and, get out there. And we've got Tammy Kranich is in that group, and she's got over 100 real estate agents from all over the country that have been participating in her weekly CMA day challenge. She laid it out for 90 days. And so it'll be fun to hear from her and get an update today. And then I've got just other people I know who are literally this week launching. I got a friend who's Win by Noon user who's launching his CMA day challenge to a small group, less than 10 realtors tomorrow. But I'm just super proud of him for being proactive and saying, hey, not only, hey, how does this benefit me? He's really saying, hey, how can I benefit you and your clients? And so a long answer, but I think it's just one of those things where anytime, the word I always learn from you guys is intentional, right? Anytime you have intentionality around doing something, it's going to have positive results.
So that we talk a lot, all three of us talk a lot about how our inner game drives that outer game. What you guys are doing with that, I hope no one mistakes as an outer game strategy. It's really an inner game strategy. You're helping them create a mindset around taking control of something that they have a high degree of control over, and can definitely, with that control, develop discipline and focus and calm a little bit of their mindset and spirit as they head into maybe some shifting market conditions. That does so much to positively impact the way that they approach their day when they have a sense of, I already know what success looks like. I just go follow that path. That alone cuts out a lot of the doubt and the fear that probably comes with a shifting mindset. So you guys are doing really good work there. And I just say that because I don't want anyone watching or listening to confuse this as, oh, this is just another exercise in checking boxes. I'm going to, do this and check the box. No, it's all about getting your mind focused on how to get back to winning a daily battle that if you keep doing consistently, look at the results you just spouted off. So no, that wasn't a long answer. That was actually very helpful for me to see that you have some data points. I don't know Jeremy personally, but I totally love the idea that when we focus on the numbers, we eliminate a lot of the confusion that our emotions add to the situation. The data is just data. It's nice and neutral. It just tells us a story, and you're paying attention to the storyline. I love it.
So it's
Well, you just said it. I wrote it down. I already know what success looks like. I just have to follow that path. And that's such brilliance. Sorry, Greg, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no worries. That's the video funk, right? Sometimes we do that. So you were talking about it's more strategic, and that when I look at the conversations I'm having with originators right now, it's September. If you're not thinking about 2022, you need to be, right? So going from the tactical responsive place that you've all been in with a ton of opportunity, you need, excuse me, you need to think forward, right? And truly thinking strategically towards 2022. And you can, I mean, you can read all the reports and what the expectations and forecasts are. I think that's important to understand a transitioning market. But when you start thinking a little bit longer term, that's not super long, but now's the time that you start building towards Q1 in 2022. Whatever you're doing today has to set you up well for next year. And Q1 is always pivotal. I don't expect the tailwind that we've had, right? I just don't. And the good news is if there happens to be one, all the better. But if there's not, if it's either slack or it's a headwind, think about all the different channels of business that you should be going after. What are the relationships? And then how are you using it? This is what I love about Mortgage Coach and everything you guys do. How do you use video? How do you really impact people? Because another thing that I can't figure out or forecast is what the climate's going to be like. Can you be in person? Can you not be in person? How do you reach people you've never met before that are doing the business that you should be partnering with? You've got to get creative in that. So when you start thinking forward into 2022, if you're not coming up with new strategies on how you reach people in a professional manner that's compelling, if you're not really clear on what your unique value proposition is, because you really haven't had to have one for a while, get really crisp on that. I think you need to understand your why, because as the market does shift, and it, historically it's always going to shift, we get challenged, I think, sometimes with what's our why. I think pain happens a lot in shifts. Somebody comes in on the market and you might be dealing with pricing pressure, margin compression, whatever may come at you. You got to remember, what is it that I love about this business, and what are the core activities? Because if you do just function on some of the other aspects, you're reacting to your environment rather than saying, I'm going to create my own mindset in it. And it really starts with, look out. Where do you want to be? What's the story you want to have? Let's say September 2022, that you were able to do where you played on offense and you were able to be intentional, as you said, with what you want to build. So it's getting people there now. And it may be like, hey man, summer just ended. Like, why are we talking about that? You got to stretch forward. You have to think differently than the day-to-day, as well as the day-to-day stuff that happens, right? So it's like, it's an and rather than an either or.
So how do you encourage someone who's just feeling that they're in this whirlwind that's going on right now, to be able to, step back and do that? I know you guys have some free tools available on the website. So where would you kind of suggest someone starts who this resonates with, realizing, you know what, I've been flying by the seat of my pants for 18 months. And yeah, I'm feeling that it's a few less applications, less loans in the pipeline. And I like what Greg just said.
So one of the most difficult things, but it's the ask, is pause. Like, you have to take a pause. And the stimulus of this business doesn't allow for many pauses. Either have a lot of business and you're going fast, or it's like, I got to go and get business. It's like, first you need to pause and assess, where are you at? A simple tool that's not, doesn't take much time to go through, but a simple keep, start, stop, evaluating the business. Hey, what's working really well right now? And that can be as holistic as how my team's doing, how my marketing's doing, the quality of relationships, my borrowers, our process, our conversion rates, like everything It's like, how are we doing? What things should we keep doing that we believe not only will help us today, but even in the transitioning market? And based off of what we see, is there's something we need to start. Like, what new wrinkles do we need to bring out there? And is there anything we need to stop that's getting in the way? So, I mean, it's a very simple exercise, but that's the first place of a pause. Take time to evaluate your business. Then your starts and your stops are going to be key, because that's going to be where some of that change kicks in. You protect what you need to keep that you know day in, day out works, but then you start to make the adjustments in those starts and those stops. And I think that, to me, if people just took time to do that, I'm not talking about a whole day even, I'm like 2 hours uninterrupted, start there, but then keep that discipline up. If you're not evaluating your business on a regular basis, spending on time thinking about the business, then your business is going to fundamentally not improve. What I'm seeing, the most encouraging thing I'm seeing with some of the top originators that I'm coaching, is they've fundamentally improved the business in their platforms from 2020 to 2021. Going into 2022, I'm like, I can predict that person's going to do well, because they haven't just taken, they're not just harvesting, they're actually making sure that all their fundamental aspects of their business are incrementally getting better. They're investing back into the business. So I think, to me, that's one of the keys. It's like, you can't just be originating right now. You have to think about, what areas do I have to keep improving?
I love that. It reminds me, because I still have it on the back of my door. It's on a big Post-it note that you taught me when you were coaching me and I was a new coach, which was, there's magic in the pause, and a different type of pause that you coached me on that for, which was just to shut up when someone was talking. But the whole idea just resonates with me, is that if people would just take that 2 hours and just take inventory, right? What's my current reality? How am I doing? And then do that tool, which is super simple, as you said, to keep, start, stop. And so I would encourage you, if you're like, wait a second, what is that, right? Go back after this call and just listen to that one little segment, because just doing that in your business is enough just to take, start that trajectory going forward into 2022 to take yourself up to that next level.
Todd, it's interesting that you took away a more eloquent version of that from being coached by Greg. The note I have on my wall that Greg gave me is just the word wait. Why am I talking? Maybe I
write that one down too.
Maybe I needed to hear that more directly.
You mean right now?
I'm just pausing.
No, keep going, Coach. Where are you going?
Pause.
Yeah. I'm on such good behavior right now. You have no idea the thoughts I have.
So Greg mentions keep, start, stop, and look at the timing of where we are preparing for 2022. We're sitting here in September. Most of us that are following the Win by Noon journal are coming to the end of this quarterly journal, about to launch our fourth quarter journal. It's a great period of time. It's already built into our cadence because of the practice that you've put into play with the audience that's following, is to sit down in that quarterly review, run that. In fact, I don't know why I have to add another letter. I call it a KISS, the keep, improve, start, stop. And all I look for in that exercise is what Greg just suggested, in order to separate a few things that I sometimes get confused if I'm not careful with. As an originator, I sometimes confuse my objectives with my strategies and my tactics. They sometimes feel like a big ball of the same thing, because we often talk about goals, and goals can sometimes involve objectives, can sometimes involve strategies, and occasionally even the tactics themselves. If I get really clear with that keep, improve, start, stop exercise that Greg mentioned on a quarterly cadence, I give myself permission to look for which of these things are really those long-term objectives that I'm trying to orient toward in 2022, or maybe even further out if I see further than that in my practice. And what strategies would I choose to start lining up now? Maybe research that I need to do, reading I need to do, conversations I need to be having with key stakeholders now to start preparing me for that 2022 future, before I dive right into the tactics, which are more of the executables. What am I going to actually commit to doing toward those end results? Now is a great time to do that. And I couldn't agree more with Greg on that orientation point. And then here's what I'd add to it for your audience. calendar it out now. I mean, literally in front of me, Todd, it's not win by noon, so don't get upset. But I'm ordering my 2022 calendar now. Why am I doing that? Because I already know when these transitional points are going to happen throughout the year. I already know when all of the big rocks in my calendar are going to exist. So I'm going to go ahead and start planning out those points, including the strategic pause. When am I going to take time to reflect on my business? When am I going to take time to seek out outside input to sharpen what I'm going to do so that I can get better? If I've prepared myself for those moments, then I think what comes out of them tends to be a lot clearer and a lot sharper and a lot more focused. Where if I'm just scrambling to do them because, oh my gosh, it's the end of the year, I've got a plan, I tend to put up plans and commitments that are really too short-sighted, that they're too safe, or occasionally just too ridiculous. Like I'm not really thinking them through. Now's the time. Let's get focused on opportunities that we see, strategies that'll get us there, and then boil down into the tactics that we need to commit to.
I love it. Are you going to add something on that, Greg, before I unpause myself?
I was actually pausing to give you space.
Well, thank you. So of course, I'm not very good at plugging, but I would say that you can't really see it because of this Zoom fake background I have, but it is the last page of the quarterly planner has the keep, improve, start, stop in there. And it does have a weekly review in there as well. You know, this week I totally crushed new opportunities, ideas, and then roadblocks and barriers, because that's what, you know, you'll carry forward in that keep, improve, start, stop. And so, you know, certainly for those of you who use Win by Noon, I'm always amazed because, you know, Win by Noon, I just say you got to use it to whatever, you know, whatever part of it really makes you sing, right? Whatever makes you like, whatever you resonate with. Most people don't use every single blank in there. In fact, I don't know too many who do. However, I'm always surprised when someone says, oh yeah, I didn't do that keep, improve, start, stop. And then once they do it, they're like, like blinding flash, the obvious, like, I can't believe I wasn't doing that prior. So I'm really glad that that you guys brought that up. And yeah.
And Todd, let's don't miss this. If they're willing to commit to use it in the journal as a personal exercise, it's also an awesome exercise to have on a quarterly basis with your team. Let's look as we interact with each other. What are the areas in which our communications or our process flow could be kept, improved, new things we could add, or things that just aren't working? The advice I'd give on this is when you get to stop, that's often a tough one for some people. They just want to add and add and add and add. Stop doesn't mean we have to take it out back and shoot it dead. It just might mean, like the digital bookshelf behind you, we put it up on the shelf and we park it for a while. We know where to find it when we need it. It's still there. We're just choosing not to pour energy into it because the opportunity isn't right for that strategy. So stop can be pause. And I really hope that people don't hear stop as like I've got to, you know, kill things off. Just ask yourself, is this contributing positively to the momentum that I'm trying to create heading into the new year? If it is, how can I improve it? Or what can I add? If it's not, press pause and put it on the shelf.
You know, I like that because people don't want to stop something that they've invested time and money into it, even when it's not working. And so I like that. Again, one more opportunity to use that word pause.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think what you might be stopping is more about your time and your energy wasters, right? So some of that stuff you do bring to the backyard, right? It's never productive, right? So also I think having the biggest resistance I see with people saying no to stuff is they don't want to let people down. They don't know how to say no. They don't want to deal with the conflict. But when you look at how precious time is, and if this world hasn't taught us how precious time is, you have to be, I'm going to say, almost ruthless with knowing the things that are not contributing to the quality of your relationships, the quality of your business, the quality of your life. We get involved in so many activities out of obligation. We're feeling like it's something we have to do. I would challenge that and really ask, is it? I mean, like as we get older and we start, I think, adulting a little bit more, we start to realize we do a lot of stuff based off of what other people's expectations are, but are we authentically doing the right things that are going to leave the best legacy for us. So I would say be courageous in what you do stop. Be okay with it. There's all sorts of different authors that I think can speak volumes to it. But when I think of Bob Goff, who is insanely busy and yet insanely available and present. I mean, he puts his cell phone in the back of his books and he answers the call. I'm like, I would never do that. That would be crazy. I never could get anything done. But he has like quit Thursdays. He quits something. And sometimes it's like big and courageous, but it's just the notion of some things we just need to let go of. And knowing how busy everybody is in this business all the time, I promise you, some of your biggest gains are going to be what you take away.
It's funny you say that. In the Modern Mortgage Summit last year, we had we didn't give direction to originators on what they should talk about. We encourage them to really talk about whatever's on their heart. And we had 2 originators both present on how to say no. And it was really powerful. And this year we have one originator who's going to talk on that. He happens to be Shant Banajian, who's the #1 loan officer in America. And so you have this guy who's just super driven, is going to close $2.2 billion worth of loans. He's doing as much for his team, and he does they're all his relationships. So it's not like he's a company trying to claim all of his loan officers underneath him. It's all his business. And he's going to do one on how to say no. I can't wait to see it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the ones that are doing the most are actually the ones that probably say no the most.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
how it's sustainable.
I would agree with that, because you asked us, what we're seeing with some of the clients we serve. I would agree that there's a theme around the art of saying no. You mentioned obligation.
Mhm.
I use this phrase with clients all the time. It's an opportunity, not an obligation. Like, get in that mindset early, personally and with your team, because if you don't, you're right, the industry kind of draws us into a level of commitment that is overwhelming before we even realize it. And not everything in there should be stopped. So we have to be really careful with what we're saying no to, but understanding the freedom that comes from letting go of something is powerful. And I do see that a lot of the leaders that really, well, we talked, you mentioned this phrase earlier, going into the year prepared for the year ahead. But if it doesn't go that way, if the wind does continue, 2021 was a lot like that. I saw a lot of clients preparing for a pullback that didn't happen the way they had maybe early anticipated it, because newsflash, the MBA is never right with their forecast, ever. Never has happened. But it's okay to be prepared, because when you're prepared, it brings peace. I know I have a playbook full of plays that I know how to run, but I'm not obligated to run them all. I've taken the time to prepare. I'm calm. I know when these events happen, what I'm going to do to handle what's happening. That all comes from saying no. If we don't clear some space and create some true white space in our calendar and in our lives, the word I use is margin. And we have to embrace the benefits that come from margin. It gives us the ability to be really fast and really focused when we need to be, because we're not overwhelmed. And that's, if we can get people thinking that way now in September, man, it's going to be a great 22.
Yeah, I think overwhelm is such a word we hear a lot. Are you, when we talk about all these different things that are going on, and we talk about what you guys are seeing from the coach's chair, any examples or ideas that you can think of that someone would look for from, I know I'm going a different direction, like from an opportunity perspective, have you heard of, or even the start part of it, any advice that you would have on something that outside of, maybe some a little more tactical that you guys have any clients that are jumping in on, or that you've heard that you think are worth mentioning?
Are you saying specific to creating margin, or what's that towards?
Towards however you would want to run it, whether it's towards creating margin or or preparing from a business perspective for next year, maybe some, new something that you're seeing someone put into play from a truly tactical perspective.
All right. Well, I'll jump in on this, because Greg mentioned in his earlier comments about, brushing up on your unique value proposition. So that sounds really tactical, but look at it through a different lens. Where is the future of our industry going? Where 3 to 5 years from now are we likely to be in terms of customer experience and interaction? We're all hearing about blockchain. We're all familiar with margin compression, and we all understand that speed of service is paramount to success. But the consequence of all those things, if we're not really careful, is our industry becomes more homogenized over time. We end up looking like the same kind of different to the audience, because at the pace we're going and at the execution that we all are capable of delivering, it all looks like the same kind of different. So with that, I would say you as an audience member have to take ownership over your unique value proposition. In a room full of lenders that the audience assumes look a lot like me in terms of what we do or what we offer or even how we do it. I mean, the lines have been so blurred by just this narrowing. I have to take responsibility over defining what makes me a little bit different than everyone else that you assume does the same thing. And if I can take ownership over that value proposition, get really good around how I message it, get really good at how I deliver it so that I can cut through the noise. An old classic book that you and I read 20 years ago, Todd, was Blue Ocean Strategy. It's time for some new blue ocean strategies. Let's get away from the bloody water of where everybody is fighting for the same deals. And let's create something that allows us to stand out and be unique. It takes some time, it takes some work, and you got to be really clear with how you message your UVP. That would be my first suggestion.
Yeah, I'll build off that as far as specific things you can do. I know we live in a world of being surveyed, right? And net promoter score, really important indicator. We value it here at Building Champions. But I'm going to say that specifically should be doing a different kind of survey with your clients. Ask them what's most important to them. I mean, it always starts with that. What are they looking for? What do they value? What would make this experience even better for them? Like if you're not asking the curious questions with your referral sources, your borrowers, et cetera, I would start right there. Get the pulse of the people that you like doing business with. Don't necessarily ask those people that are a little bit harder to work with, or you don't like the ones like think about your favorite clients. What do they value? What do they see changing? What can make it better? I mean, technology is obviously like the ease and speed is going to continue to be, I think, a big push industry wide. But knowing what the client values is still king. It still is. So I think get a pulse from them. Don't skip the feedback there. It's simple enough to do a survey monkey or whatever and build up some questions. You can pick up the phone, just have conversations. If you're able to take somebody to coffee, they're just continue to ask from a end user perspective. What's it like? What would you love to see? I think if you just start there, it's going to help you with not only building your unique value proposition. I think it's going to help you go into 2022 to understand, okay, this is the lane that I need to start thinking about. Oftentimes we'll think we know what the improvements need to be. And a borrower might be like, that means nothing to me. We do it for ourselves a lot, right? So ask the people that ultimately are going to become your raving fans.
True. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's so true. And don't miss that. If you just heard what Greg said, it's profoundly simple. Just ask the question and have enough courage to listen to the answer they give you. You might find out shockingly that you're investing a lot of time and energy into a process or a delivery system that they don't care about at all. Don't you want to know that? I mean, if you knew the answer to that, you could now design something that's maybe more elegant or efficient, or maybe not design it at all. Maybe just, skip the design and do. But you have to have the courage to step into that space and ask the question and be willing to listen to the feedback.
Now here's something to build off of. This is where it gets fun, right? Take that same principle and now go to people you don't know. Can you imagine how easy the conversation might be to get in front of somebody and say, hey, I just want to ask you some questions because I really want to know from your perspective what's most important. It's not a sales pitch. I'm just getting information. But just the fact that you would approach it, I'm guessing people might say yes to meeting with you in whatever medium you use. And I'm guessing it might give you access to people you never would have had access to. And you're going to make an impression on them because it's like, here's somebody that's still trying to get better. They actually care and they're listening. I can't see how that wouldn't build on, okay, my first experiences with you are somebody that's actually listening to the person that they do business with. They might actually be someone I want to do business with. So you start with your core and then you can build out from there with the very same platform.
You know, it's so refreshing. I love the whole idea of just picking up the phone. You know, I know a lot of companies have, you know, a little survey that goes out at the end, and, you know, you're all excited when you get a 5-star review, but it doesn't really dig into to truly what's most important. And I think that people are afraid to take the time to ask the questions. And you said something, Greg, that really sticks out is, who did you like working with the most? Right. You know, I mean, in the end, you know, you don't like the person who's the first question is what's your rate? You know, we all get tired of that, but it's an important part of the conversation. As Michael pointed out earlier, you know, unique value proposition matters there. But I do think I would just encourage you, even if you just call 5 people, I remember back in Master's Coach, you know, years ago, we all read that book by the Heath brothers, Made to Stick, and they talk about the curse of knowledge, right? That's, I think, the hardest part for all of us in the business is we think we know what the best process looks like. And it's the process that we like the best, but that may not be the process your client likes the best. So I think that was a great gift. I love that.
Yeah, that you're nailing what I'm talking about is let's just find out. Once we know, we have permission to be creative now. We can ask better questions. We can seek other creative solutions. We can decide what we're going to stop, take out, back, and kill, or just pause because we understand where it fits. But it all comes from asking better questions. And I guess as I'm reflecting on how Greg set that up, here are a couple of practical examples so that if the audience is having some level of, okay, but what does that mean literally? Like, you may find out that newsletter you're still sending out, that nobody cares about it and nobody reads it. You may find out that those Facebook posts that you're religious about posting aren't getting traction for a reason. Nobody cares. And that's okay as long as you take that information and move toward, well, then what do you care about? And where could we go? Where could we invest that time more creatively? Those are just examples. I'm not down on Facebook posts or newsletters, but we have to have the courage to find out what the answers are. And sometimes you'll get a one-off answer. Don't get too worked up if the feedback you get from one person is a outlier from the other information. But if you start seeing consensus, have enough courage to look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I can do something about that. Now I know.
I was thinking the difference between effective versus efficient, right? If you're always looking for efficiencies rather than what's effective, like look what's effective, right? So a lot of our automations might be efficient, but are they effective?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me when I got one of those telephone trees, you know, it was like $40 a month and you could call in, you know, press 1 to talk to Todd, press 2 to, you know, and people just hated it. I thought it was super efficient, but, you know, no one wants to call and get a robot. It was certainly efficient for us, but it wasn't effective because we probably lost business by not thinking through the fact that someone's going to call and say, I don't know who to talk to, click and be done.
Yeah.
So that causes me to want to throw one reminder out there as we say all this. Also have enough courage to say there are enough people that want to do business the way I want to do it, to not worry about the ones that don't. My favorite story of this was the Herb Kelleher story about the note he wrote to, was it Mrs. Smith? But it doesn't matter. You know, the idea that she was upset about how playful the flight attendants were during the safety precautions. And his response was, "Dear Mrs. Smith, we'll miss you. Love, Herb." The idea is it's okay that not everybody wants to do business your way. So if you've got a partner who just doesn't want to do business your way, you're not forced to accommodate every single person in your marketplace. Be confident that if you know that there is good feedback and there's a large enough audience who cares about what you want to do, that you can build on that and you can build momentum around your brand and your messaging and attract more people to want to join that journey with you in the future. It may start small, but you can build on it. If you try to spread yourself out and please everybody, that seems like a formula for inefficiency and ineffectiveness.
It does get back to knowing your ideal customer, right? I
Mhm.
mean, one of my favorite Kelleher quotes is the customer isn't always right. Sometimes they're just drunk or on drugs. That's a quote from him. It's hilarious, but it's like the right customer is right for what you want to do, but not every customer. Some of them are just drunk or on drugs. It's like, understand that you can't please everybody, but know your core audience. And if you know your core audience, you know how to deliver.
Well, and I would say if you're a newer originator and you're like, oh, that's easy for someone to say who's closing a lot of loans, that's okay. That's the goal to get there, right? The goal to get there is by, not working with that client and taking the, allowing them to go shopping when they're not really qualified. And, you created the extra 17 phone calls that you had to do to, get that loan across the finish line. When you're able to say no to those relationships, and, sometimes you've got to, it should be your motivation to go out there and build new relationships, find that ideal customer that, that Greg and Michael just mentioned, so that you can be in a position where you feel confident and comfortable pushing those other people aside. Because the minute that you can do that you can fire a client or you can fire a partner who is just not a good match, for any reason at all, is really when your business will take off. And I would encourage you to do it sooner than later, but just know that that was always my motivation to go out there and find a new partnership, was so that I didn't have to work with the ones who wouldn't do business my way, like Michael said.
Yeah, we all read Good to Great, and we remember the analogy about getting people on the bus and getting them in the right seats on the bus. I like to play that out and remind people it's okay when you realize someone is on the bus that shouldn't be, to give them a bus transfer. We don't have to throw people off the bus while we're driving 60. We just pull into the bus stop, give them a bus transfer. There's someone out there who will be a great fit for who they are. And that's okay too, because it frees you up to now go find that new person to welcome them onto that seat on your bus and do something beautiful together.
Yeah, I think never stop prospecting. I mean, at the end of the day, the reason why somebody might have, I'm just going to call it a scarce mind to hold on to relationships they shouldn't, they don't have enough opportunity to be able to say no. Then I look at it, it's like, well, did you stop prospecting, or are you prospecting at the level that affords you the ability to be able to say no? And in the beginning, you're not necessarily always going to know until you actually go through it. You're going to develop that muscle to understand, okay, I'm learning, because sometimes I'm going to do business with people that I don't like, that they're not my right client type. That's a part of I think, the normal growth process. The difference between people that get from here to here quickly is they figure it out sooner on what they need to say no to, but they also are probably backed by the fact that they are prospecting continually. Now, the last couple of years, we've had, I think, a market that didn't require true prospecting. If you weren't discerning in the last couple of years of who you did business with, then I'd say you're probably burnt out. You probably had turnover. Client satisfaction was probably lower. Those things would probably bear out. You may not have as much fun in the business, feeling like you got to be everything to everybody. So the sooner you can flip the switch, the better. But it is a part of the learning curve, and it's okay. Just don't stay stuck there.
It's funny you said that, because I wrote that down earlier, new strategies of how to meet people. And I do feel like that's been one of the areas that's really slid for most people I talk to in real estate and mortgage, is that they've really not been flexing that prospecting muscle. So how would you guys encourage someone who has, either been overwhelmed or been afraid to do it, to reflip the switch to get out there and do it again?
Well, remember you talked earlier about the TCA a day challenge and the CMA a day challenge that I said are more than just tactical boxes to check. They're really helping reprogram your mind and build your confidence, because you can focus on what a win looks like each day. So let's take prospecting and argue that if you've had 18 months of transactional activity, you've had an audience of people that have been part of that experience with you. You've had borrowers, sometimes you've had borrower agents, sometimes you've had listing agents. Let's start with what I think you like to call, Todd, the Tuesday and Wednesday calls in your time block. And let's get really comfortable with the idea that you've had an audience that's experienced your process. They've had a front row seat to it. You've been responsible for these agents' paychecks for a 10 to 20 day period, maybe 30. So let's let's revisit those conversations first. You don't have to turn prospecting doesn't always have to equal cold calling. And I know there's some resistance to that. A lot of times we have an opportunity in those relationships, but let's even tie in something we said earlier about, setting expectations up front. What if we started calling our listing agents and reminding them up front that instead of chasing them down for a cup of coffee at the end of transactions, like every other loan officer is going to try to do, what if we said that we're going to deliver on 3 promises: a high level of availability, a high level of outbound communication, and a high level of delivery of everything that was under contract on time, as promised, with no stress? And if we do those things, what if those resulted in a survey called a 5-star review at the end of the process? If that agent believes we've delivered on those 3 promises and they're willing to give us a 5-star review, why don't we offer to give them one in return? Something that we can do that would really help grow their business, because we're now putting our words out into an evergreen environment where anyone can see what a great job this agent did. Isn't that helping them out a lot more than buying them a cup of coffee and begging them for business? Let's invest in their business. That'd be an example of something practical we could do. And that's prospecting, by the way. That's not cold calling. That's going out and saying, I want to invest in your business and make it better, but I'm not asking for it. I'm going to deliver first.
Love that. That's a different spin than I've ever heard. So I think it's a great way. And it's funny because you're right. Everyone does chase the person afterwards. And then now you're actually adding value. What a great idea.
So I promise you, those listing agents have been underserved. When they don't have the relationship with the lender, they're not getting that level of service. It's not the same, so I think you can make a huge statement if you did something like that. Now, you said 2 things, and I know I want to make sure we're mindful of the time. One was if they're overwhelmed. The other one is if they were afraid. Like, I think what Michael just shared was, hey, if they don't have the idea of what to do, here's some ideas to do. Mm-hmm. Right. And even knowing what is your unique value proposition, what's your purpose, what's your why, I think those things at least can motivate you past the, like, I don't know that I want to switch to that gear. But the overwhelm we didn't address. And I would address that very differently for people that are overwhelmed. You got to get your energy. Like, sometimes you have to say, okay, what's necessary for my well-being to have the energy to go and shift gears? So if you're really overwhelmed in the last couple of years, a lot of you are, it's been an insane run. So I would look at maybe more of your where you're stopping and starting the days. What are you doing to fill with energy? Where are you going towards energy giving time? And so I'd look at it very differently, but I'd want to know specifically what's draining you and what's going to energize you. And now you're ready to run again. Because to ask people that are overwhelmed to do one more thing, it's almost cruel, in my opinion. But you can't just languish there, right? Have a strategy, because it's to get you back on the field and playing.
Yeah, I do think overwhelm is such a big one. I was talking to a friend this morning before the call, and he closed over 500 loans last year, and he said he can't remember the last time where he didn't answer the phone or have a conversation with somebody, on a weekend. He said last night, client texted him, hey, I got a quick question. Like, I really need to talk to you. And he's like, well, I'm watching the football game, so sure, I'll talk to you. But, my hope for him was that, going forward, he would actually enjoy the football game. I'm sure he had his wife or one of his kids sit next to him and be able to do that. So I do love that you brought that piece up, Greg. I think that's so important.
Yeah, and it might get back to having the courage to say no to some stuff.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, if you hear the word overwhelmed, ask yourself where you're over obligated. That gives you an opportunity to take control, whether it's the morning routine or the evening routine, whether it's the phone is always on. There's so many. I mean, I don't want to, in a minute here, get into all the little examples, but if you're overwhelmed, you're probably overcommitted by being over obligated. So just take ownership of the idea that I can press pause and sort that out.
Yeah, it's okay to say no. So I'm so grateful that you guys were able to jump in. So I would love to throw a couple of how does someone who's interested in learning more about building champions or wants to look at some of the free tools you guys offer, where would they want to go, and what does that look like?
Well, buildingchampions.com is going to be clearly the fastest way to access that information. And Greg and I are both highly available and interested in engaging if anyone has direct questions. So our emails are available on the company profile. You can look both of us up and find our information. But we're here to help people sort through that. That's why we're in this business. That's why we love what we do.
Yeah, and there's lots of tools and free resources on our website. And if it's a more specific question, just reach out to us directly. We're always happy to have a conversation.
Well, like I say, I'm super grateful. Just real quick, someone asked a question about the TCA Day Mastermind. It'll be in the Facebook group live. And then if you want to be a participant, meaning you want us to coach you, then there's a Zoom link we're happy to send to you. Just reach on out. But I would encourage you guys, if you're thinking about taking your business to the next level, taking your life to the next level, to reach out to the folks over at Building Champions. I'm grateful for them. I always say it. I said at the beginning of the call, I say it every time I get a chance. They've not only made me a great loan originator with a successful career, but made me a better human, had a great relationship with my family and friends because of you guys. So I'm so grateful for you. You guys mean a lot. I got a page plus of notes from this, and just miss you guys, and say hi to the gang for me. And appreciate you guys being part of our day while you're there remote out in Sun River.
Got it, buddy. Great being with you.
Love you, brother.
All right, man. Love you guys too. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks everyone for being here. And this is recorded, so definitely go back, listen to it. I think there's definitely gems throughout there, and definitely am excited for the next opportunity I have to be with you guys live and in person. And thanks everyone in the community for being part of our day.